Hey guys, my name is Angus, and today I bring you this video discussing how I believe the others will cross over into Westeros. Now, for you guys who watch the show, I don't believe this theory applies to that. It's only really a possibility in the books, mainly because the showrunners and characters in the show have not mentioned the Bridge of Skulls or West Watch by the Bridge, and so I feel it would be a little bit of a cop-out for the White Walkers to come this way in the show. Now, for the rest of the video, I will use the term White Walkers just for those people who have watched the show but haven't read the books, so that they understand what I am talking about. Okay, so the reason I am bringing out this video and the theory of the White Walkers coming via the Bridge of Skulls is because nobody that I've seen has done it. My two favourite YouTubers, being Emergency Awesome and The Last Harpy, and I follow them quite well, have brought out a great variety of stuff, and for those who haven't seen them, I do highly recommend watching them. But neither one of them has really mentioned much of West Watch by the Bridge or the Bridge of Skulls. So I've decided I'm going to bring out my own video and hope for the best. It could turn out terrible, but anyway, let me know in the comments and I'll know how it went. So the first reason that I believe the White Walkers will come this way is because this is the way I would come if I was them. Now, if you put yourself into the shoes of the White Walkers, basically their goal is let's get south of the wall. How do we do that? Well, we can't go over the wall, we can't go under the wall, we can't go through the wall. It's been built, purposely designed to stop us coming through. However, it turns out you can go round. So whether that be via the Gorge or via the Bridge of Skulls, you've got two options, really. Unless you've got the Horn of Joramun, which I don't believe they do. I can't remember which book it was in, but in the Great Rain, when Jon and the other rangers went out for the Great Ranging with the Lord Commander Mormont, at the Fist of the First Men they found the Dragon Glass and a broken horn. I believe that horn is the Horn of Joramun. Now, you'll also remember Mance did not have the horn. He says he did, but then you also have Ygritte and Tormund both saying, no, we don't. Especially Ygritte, who was saying, I wish we could have just blown the wall down, but we don't have the horn. So I feel it's pretty safe to assume Mance never had the horn, and leaving the horn with a heap of dragon glass at the Fist of the First Men, which was a stronghold of the First Men, seems like something that makes sense to do. You know, you got a horn. The Horn of Joramun is a bit of a weapon. You got a heap of dragon glass, which is also a weapon. You don't want either, really. You sort of want to keep the two together in case you need them, so you put them together. That's the way I look at it. So that's why I believe the horn is now with Sam Tarly, who has taken it to the Citadel with him. So the Horn of Joramun, I don't believe it's going to be coming into play. George also likes to keep himself quite mysterious, so I feel like the amount of writing he's done about the Horn of Joramun, I feel it's very unlikely that one's going to come out as the White Walker's trump card. Now, so basically I've eliminated why I believe it won't come to the Horn of Joramun. So you're left with two ways. Do you come via the Gorge or do you come via the Bridge of Skulls? Now, the problem for the Gorge is that you're going to get a Thermopylae problem, in that you've got the bigger army, but you've only got a narrow pass to bring them in. And the problem with that is that coming down the Gorge, you're going to be spotted from the Shadow Tower miles and miles out. It's going to give the Night's Watch and the Northern Houses plenty of time to garrison and send an army down. And this army's maybe only going to have to be 100 people, if that, because you've only got a skinny path that's maybe 10 men abreast wide. And these men just form a shield wall and they just hold you there and hold you there and hold you there and hold you there until it's basically just, nothing happens. No one wins. You just keep going and going and going until it's over. So it also rather lines up conveniently if you're coming via the Gorge and Daenerys happens to be around with her dragons. She only has to She only has to come through once. One big sweep of fire, you're all gone. So I don't believe the White Walkers will try that way, whether they know about Daenerys and the dragons or not. I don't believe they'll come via the gorge. It just sort of takes away their advantage of big numbers. Okay, which leaves the bridge. Now, some people will question, can the walkers cross the bridge? I believe the bridge was built after the wall, and if this is the case, it is also highly possible that the bridge does not contain the magic that prevents walkers crossing it that the wall does have. So, if that is the case, then the walkers can just walk straight across it without an issue. Now, the reason I believe the bridge was built at a later date, firstly, this is just my own statement here, you've just built a huge wall. Bran the Builder, the Giants, the Green, the Children of the Forest, the whole lot of you've built this huge wall because you did not want to be anywhere near the White Walkers. So the next thing you do is not build a bridge over. You're not going to build a bridge round that bypasses the wall. It seems a bit silly. You've just built this wall. You want to stay as far away from them as possible. You're not going to build a bridge around just in case you want to go over and say hi in a couple of years' time. I believe the Bridge of Skulls was built at a later date when the White Walkers had fallen into legend and the Night's Watch was on the decline, and the biggest problem the Night's Watch faced was the wildlings. Okay? So that's when I believe it was built. Now we do know from The World of Ice and Fire by George R.R. Martin, which I believe is canon as it was written by Martin, and whilst not part of the Song and Ice and Fire series, it is a Mace's interpretation of what has happened, the history, the lore, everything that's happened in Westeros since the Age of Heroes. Now, in that, it states that the Night Fort is the oldest of all the castles of the Night's Watch. And if you have an oldest castle, that also implies that you will have a youngest castle. And I believe the youngest castle is Westwatch by the Bridge. And you can't have Westwatch by the Bridge without the Bridge of Skulls. Okay, so I believe the Bridge of Skulls and Westwatch by the Bridge, they were built together. And where all the Night's Watch castles are defensive castles, the Westwatch is an attacking one. Now, the reason I say this is because it is on the western side of the gorge, obviously, and it doesn't have the protection of the wall. So this castle is designed so that rangers can sneak out up the Frostfangs and either spy on the wildlings or employ guerrilla warfare tactics, attacking certain factions or areas and weakening the wildling armies. Maybe even taking down Kings Beyond the Wall, just snipping off their supply lines as they're marching down. And also, this would also allow them to relay information very quickly back to the Night's Watch. And with the cover of the Frostfangs, it would be quite unlikely they would be caught because they've got a lot of places to hide. A lot of people wouldn't be expecting them, and it's very easy for them to get back. So that's why I believe this castle was built last. It was built as an attacking option, not a defending option. Okay, so if you agree with me, then you'll be able to follow along with this theory. If you don't agree, that's okay. But obviously then if you don't agree with me there, you're not going to agree with the theory. So, now, another thing with the Bridge of Skulls is I believe it can support an army crossing if the bridge is uncontested. Now, the reason I believe this is in A Storm of Swords, this one here, Mance Rayder sends a splinter force to the Bridge of Skulls. And it's not a small force either. It's a big enough force that the Night's Watch have spotted them from the Shadow Tower and the Frostfangs with their fires, and they've decided, okay, we need reinforcements. They've called in the garrison from Castle Black, which was led by Bowen Marsh, and they've gone over to the Westwatch by the Bridge because at the time it was an abandoned castle, and they've re-garrisoned there awaiting the Wildling army. Now, The Night's Watch, they know that Mance Rayder grew up at Shadow Tower. They also know... Sorry, just a sec, my computer's just shut itself off. They also know that Mance Rayder would know the Bridge of Skulls quite well. Now, if the Bridge of Skulls was just a small little bridge, they'd be like, okay, well, he can't bring an army over here. He's a pretty smart guy, Mance. He's quite tactically smart, but if he's got a big army here, so he knows we're going to be worried about that, but he can't really bring an army through, so we don't need to call for reinforcements if that's the case. However, if it's a big bridge, they're going to go, okay, he is very capable of bringing an army over here, and if he can get them down the mountains quick enough, he can take Westwatch and the Bridge of Skulls and the Shadow Tower before we even know, and he can march his whole army around the wall rather than having to come over. So that's the beauty of Mance's two-pronged attack. Now, whilst I do believe that Mance's main attack was obviously Castle Black, and his main objective was to take Castle Black, that's why he was at Castle Black, I also believe he sent this force knowing that that's going to deplete the forces of Castle Black. Okay, for two reasons. First of all, in the event that Castle Black doesn't fall as quickly as he would like, and he manages to take the bridge, he can send half his force over the bridge, and unlike a wall climb, he's not going to lose anyone in the crossing, which means he can have half his force attack from the south where there is no protection for the Night's Watch, and the battle will be over in a couple of hours. The gate will be open, he can march the rest of his army through. Now, the second reason he's done this is in the event Jon Snow wasn't lying when Jon said he had 1,000 men strong at Castle Black. In the event that Jon Snow wasn't lying, so there were 1,000 men there, those men would then go, okay, Mance is going to try to force the bridge here. Let's go. We've got to go over there and defend it. And the reason they would fall into that trap is because they know that bridge can support an army coming over. And if it can support Mance's army, it can also support the Walker's army. So that's my reasoning for it. Now, the third and final reason that I believe the Walkers will come this way is that if you just look at the geography north of the wall, you've got the Frostfangs, so they won't be seen coming down. And on the other side of the Frostfangs, it's effectively the lands of Always Winter. So it just links up. They just come straight down, across the mountains, come through. They bypass everyone. The other way, they have to march over the mountains, come all the way down, which I guess they're doing anyway, but they have to come all the way down, then they get to the wall, and they have to fight their way over, rather than just waltzing across. If they come this way as well, with basically a token force at Westwatch by the bridge who aren't going to see them coming until it's too late, they can effectively have taken the entire wall from the south before anyone even knows and be surrounding Winterfell. And by that stage it's too late. Once they're surrounding Winterfell, I don't believe they can win. I believe the White Walkers have already won. If they take the north, the war for Westeros is lost for humankind. The White Walkers will win. Mainly because once they've got that momentum up, these southern armies, they don't know anything about them at all. Like, at least, as was in a Game of Thrones, the blood of the first men remembers, in a way. They always say the North remembers. Okay, in the show and in the books as well. They say the North remembers, the blood of the first men remembers. Jon Snow remembered to kill whites with fire, even though nobody had seen them in thousands of years. So basically, but everyone south of the neck, they're all the Andals. They're not the first men. They're a different race of people. They don't have that blood of the first men. They won't remember how to kill them, and unless somebody tells them how, it's probably going to be too late. Maybe Daenerys, but with her dragons if she shows up. But that's yet to be decided. If they don't fall in the north, they won't fall unless dragons have a hand. But I feel like it's going to take more than 3 dragons to wipe out the White Walkers. Okay, so that's my theory. Basically, White Walkers, rather than having to fight at the wall, they're just going to bypass the wall, come straight into the north. And mainly I'm saying that because that's what I would do if I was them. Now, one thing I'd also like to address is that I believe there will be ice dragons in this on the side of ice, obviously, ice being the White Walkers, and I also believe it highly possible that not all of Daenerys' dragons survive to the end of the books. I haven't really seen anybody mention this possibility that a dragon or possibly even two dragons die. I would like to see it on the show as well. I think it would sort of, whether it be the upcoming attack on King's Landing or whether it be the battle with the White Walkers, I don't know, but I think it would be good to. I think it would just sort of tip the scales a little bit, because everyone's obviously expecting humans and fire to win. I think it would tip the scales if one of the dragons were to fall, and if that were the case, I think people would start, especially Daenerys, would start to realise, holy shit, these White Walkers, they are actually the real deal. Like, they are huge compared to everything, and I guess that's the irony of Game of Thrones. Everyone's, whether it be Game of Thrones the show or Game of Thrones A Song of Ice and Fire, I guess that's the irony of it. Everyone's concerned about what each other are doing when the big life-threatening event is just sitting here ready to go, amassing its force, and nobody's done anything about it, except for maybe Jon Snow and Stannis. Anyway, that's what I've got to say. Please let me know what you think of the video. Yeah, and if you want me to do any other videos, let me know, but I feel like this was pretty terrible. So, anyway, let me know.